Today I'm going to show you how to create a pop-up feature for the inside of your cards. Now, I will walk you through how to create the main base piece for the pop-up feature, and then I'm also going to show you how to create it with the Burst of Cheer and Burst of Blooms die set from Concord 9th. I walk through each step in great detail, so I hope you find this tutorial helpful. I'll have all of the supplies I'm using today linked down below in the video description and over on my blog. So the first thing we are going to do is create the pop-up burst base. This is a really great interactive feature for the inside of your cards where things are almost like bursting out at the recipient. And there's many different ways that you can decorate with it. Today's tutorial is just going to show you how to create the main interactive piece. First, I want to show you what this actually does. And there are two other products in the December 2024 release that this works really well with. This is from the Burst of Cheers. We have a fun kind of surprise birthday element in the inside, and then our belly band that can just slide right over the top. And then this one is using the Burst of Blooms set. So again, we have another fun belly band that helps kind of contain everything and hold the card together because it can get a little bulky depending on how much you decorate with it. And we have all these beautiful florals that you can decorate with the inside. Now, this is what the main base piece looks like. So this is what this actual die creates is this main element. So the first thing when you die cut out to create your piece, you're going to have this large white piece, and there are a bunch of score lines that the die provides. So since this can be a little hard to see on camera, I'm going to take a pencil and just draw along those scored lines. You do not need to do this for your card project. I'm just doing this so you can see it a little bit better on camera. But all of these pencil lines is where the scored lines are. And then right here where there's that tab looking piece, that is just kind of a placement guide. Now these other two pieces here are going to be used to pop up the banner. So for the die itself, it's all one die, but it does create these two separate pieces. Once again, it has score lines in there that I am just going to emphasize with a pencil. So again, the pencil lines you don't need to add. I'm just doing that to help see it better on camera. And then our next piece here, this long banner piece, is your banner. Now you would want to stamp your sentiment first before doing any folding or adhering. The die also provides these score lines, which I'm going to go over with that pencil once again. And then we have two other additional pieces to go with our banner. This one has a score line on it or an embossed line. And the last piece you would need to die cut out is the belly band. So you would need to die cut two of those to be able to wrap around your card. You are going to need a side folding card base. So I have one here just created out of wheat cardstock, already scored and folded. The belly band die piece actually comes with the pop-up burst base die. So you would need to cut two of them. And then you're going to fold along the score lines for each. So there's only one score line on each piece. And then on an end, the shorter end is the slit that is going to kind of help tie it all together. So we have our two long pieces here for our belly band. You're just going to add some liquid glue to one of those belly band pieces. Take the other one and place it over the top, line it up with your fold line, and then press down. And then once that's nice and dry, you're going to just take your two flaps on the side, line up those slits, and kind of slide them together, and it's going to form that circle. So you can have this part be the front of your belly band, or you can flip it over and you can do some stamping or some other decorating here. I'm going to take that medallion. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue on my belly band and place that over the top. Another die you're going to find in this set, I'm calling the teeter tot because that's what it reminds me of. It has these etched words on there. So the center score line goes in that opening, and then it shows you bottom of the card lines up with the bottom of your teeter totter. That does not do any die cutting. It is just a guide to help you line up your pop up feature. So I'm taking my side folding card base. I'm going to zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. I'm taking the teeter tot and I'm lining it up with the bottom of my card. So I opened up my card base. I have my score line in the center. Now that score line is matching up with that opening and it has that etched on the die. And then I'm tracing in the ends of the teeter tot and the V in the middle. That you do want to pencil in. So that is something you want to do. those pencil lines are going to disappear after a while, but you do need those on there to help line everything up. We're going to set that off on the side for now and work on our main interactive piece. So this really is what creates the pop-up feature. I'm going to go through that top layer or the top part of this die, and I'm going to fold along all of those score lines. So I am creating mountains. I'm going to reinforce that fold with a bone folder. You want some nice crisp folds here. You have a tab on one side, then another tab here, and there's also just an itty bitty one down at the bottom. You kind of need that because we want to be able to visually see that point. So this is kind of forming the back of our pop-up feature. And now for this smaller section where I have those pencil lines, we are going to create valleys with those. So those are going to fold over. This is going to layer over the top of that base piece. So again, just folding along all of those lines, reinforcing those lines with that bone folder, and see how it kind of creates that little bit of a gap. That's going to help. So it's leaving you room to be able to put things in and decorate that pop-up feature. So rounding out the last of these folds, I'm just using my fingernail to kind of push that in, but you could also use a ruler, the edge of a ruler to help get those to fold over. So now that we have our main folds done, we have that one piece there that I drew on. It's embossed into the cardstock and it looks just like the tab that we folded. That is your guide to show you where your tab needs to line up. Now, when you line this up, it's going to feel a little awkward. It's not going to be folded perfectly over. You need to kind of maneuver that. So here I'm just showing you where that's going to line up. And then I'm going to take liquid glue and I'm going to add that just to that tab. Don't go on the area where it kind of creates that little bit of a gap. We only want it on that tab, fold it over, and line it up with that embossed tab marking. Now, that tab, you could probably use a pencil line if that helps you a little bit because we're not going to end up seeing that anyway. I do highly recommend some strong liquid adhesive for this. It gives you a little bit of wiggle time to kind of twist and turn and maneuver that tab into position. So we are going to set that off on the side and let that dry. We want that nice and secure before we do any folding. I'm taking these smaller pieces and I'm just creating mountains along those fold lines. So I'm folding everything in, and this is going to create kind of this angled shape, a rectangle. And then our two tabs are going to meet at the bottom and they're going to overlap. And we are going to add a little bit of liquid glue to that, fold the tab over, and then I'm going to hold it in place with my tweezers. Now, I look a little awkward here because I'm kind of doing this in midair to catch it on camera, and my fingernails are getting in the way a little bit. But I folded that over, and I'm just going to let the tweezers hold that and set it off on the side, and I will do the other one. So, what these are doing is creating our pop up feature for our banner. You don't have to add a banner, but it does kind of help hide some things a little bit, and it is a really nice way to add a sentiment to the inside of the card. So here I did the second one. You are going to need two of these. So I folded along all of the lines, added liquid glue to the bottom tab, folded that over, and again, holding in place with another set of tweezers. It's always good to have multiple sets of tweezers for this purpose. Now, while those pieces are drying, we are going to come back to the inside of our card and our pop-up feature. So everything should be nice and dry. We have our folds there where it's going to pop everything out. And we are going to line this up with the inside of our card. So we have the two tabs on the edges or the sides, and we have that point down at the bottom. Now, we drew that point on there earlier with that guide. We are going to line the point of our card or on that pop-up feature with the point that we penciled on. I'm adding liquid glue to those two tabs, kind of spreading that out a little bit, lining up the point at the bottom, and then I'm able to tuck those tabs under and just hold that in place and let that glue sit for a second. I'm going to take my bone folder and I like to kind of go in the inside of that and just press that down and make sure it is nice and secure. You also want to make sure that the folds of your pop-up feature match the fold in your card base. So that's always something to look for. You want to make sure that those line up together. Now, while that is drying, I'm going to show you how to do the banner. I have those pencil lines on there just to help as a reference or you can see it better. The ends we are going to fold up to create valleys. The center is going to fold down to create a mountain. And now we have the tails. So on the tails, I drew the pencil line where the embossed area is, and then we have that perforated area. We're going to take the end of our banner and line it up with that pencil line or the embossed line. And we will do that with both sides. You could add foam squares here if you wanted a little bit more dimension to that banner. You do want to make sure you stamp first on your banner before you do any adhering. So on the back of our tails, you could see those perforated lines. I'm going to add a liquid glue right inside of that perforated line. And this is where those little kind of angled rectangles fit in. So here's a closer look. It's just going to fit right into those lines. And that's creating our pop-up feature. So it's kind of going vertically up and down, just lines right up in those lines. Just hold that there for a second, let the glue adhere, and then we'll let that dry for a minute or two. And again, you're seeing my pencil lines on the banner, but those won't be there. That was just to be able to see it better on camera. Now, here is back to our base. I'm kind of opening and closing it to get that warmed up, make sure that my folds were lined up. I don't think mine were lined up perfectly. So I'm just kind of warming up my card base, warming up that pop up feature, and making sure that everything works, everything is stuck together really well. And now we can start adding our banner. Now you can see where those two lines were, those pencil lines that I drew in from that teeter totter base die. We are going to line up those angled rectangles with those pencil lines. So once again, just adding some liquid glue, and you're going to want to hold that in place for a little bit, let that adhere, and then you can add liquid glue to the other side. And now we have our banner pop-up feature. So, this creates the main interactive portion that you can decorate with any of the products released from December 2024 release or any products in your stash from previous releases. Again, this is what it looks like with the burst of cheer. And then this is what it looks like filled with all of these gorgeous florals from the burst of blooms. Such a fun and interactive element, and such a surprise for the recipient when they open that up to see that message or that bouquet popping out. Now I'm going to build off of that base. So for this, I'm going to be using the Burst of Cheer die set. So this portion of the video is going to walk you through step by step how to use the Burst of Cheer and how to turn it into an interactive card. This is a really fun celebratory set. You have a small sentiment stamp set, and then you also have this die set that you can use with a pop-up feature or on its own, which I will show you examples for. A closer look at the die set is first we have those banners at the top. So I stamped my sentiment and then cut them out with the coordinating die, or you can cut out the banner first and then stamp it, which is probably easiest. And then you have some individual pieces to create, we're going to call them letter picks. So you have the pieces for the actual letter picks and then the word hooray. It's all on one die, but it die cuts the letters out separately. One thing I really want to draw attention to is on the back of the letter O's. You have two letter O's. On the back, Concord 9th has etched in some words. So it says first O and second O. The reason they have that is because of the angle at the bottom of the pick, which is going to line up with the pop-up feature if you have the pop-up burst dies. Before I get into a tutorial on how to use this with the pop-up burst dies, here are some card examples. This first one is a nice, clean and simple card where I die cut out the letters of the word hooray in a rainbow assortment and stamped the hip hip with a gold star in the center. And then my second card here, which is also really fun. I love how all of these came out. So this one, I'm using those letter picks, but without the pop-up feature. I have them just kind of bursting out from the bottom of my card. I used the bursting backgrounds turnabout in the background for that kind of confetti look. And then I have a banner going over the top. So hooray, let's celebrate. Those colors I'm using are watermelon, creamsicle, lemongrass, sea glass, Juniper, and I have fig. And if you want to turn this into an interactive card with the pop-up burst base die, this is how it's going to look. So first we have our belly band to kind of hold everything together. Remove that, and then the inside of the card, we have this bursting sentiment with the happy birthday banner across the bottom. That banner comes in the pop-up burst base die. I have my stars on some acetate, so it looks like they're kind of floating up above. And I will show you how to create this feature. But as you can see, it creates such a fun and colorful interactive element to the front or to the inside of your card, something really different and a surprise for the recipient. It's very dimensional. Now, I will say it is a little bit thicker than normal. So do consider that if you are planning on mailing this, that when it folds up, there is a little bit of thickness there. So just keep that in mind. And with the front of my card, I kept it very simple in decorating. I used the Bursting Backgrounds Turnabout, but I only did it once. And I did it in some Slippery When Wet Astro paste. So it's like a gold Astro paste on the front. And then I just have my belly band that slides right on over, and then that star that's decorated in the center. But you can also stamp on your belly band too if you'd want a sentiment on the front. Now, taking a look at how to put everything together, I have all of my letter picks kind of die cut out in a rainbow assortment of colors. So, those you can either do in one color cardstock and have your letters be different colors, or vice versa, like I have it here. You just add some liquid glue to the back of your letters and it fit them right over the top. So, they're going to fit nicely. There's not going to be any gaps. But you could do some shadowing with a black cardstock and just kind of slightly offset it if you want to have a shadow layer there. Once I glue those down, I do put something heavy on them and let them sit for a little bit. And I'm going to work on my stars. So I die cut out the star picks out of acetate. So it looks like they're just kind of stars floating in midair. But you could also die cut them from white or from like a yellow color cardstock. I just thought the acetate was really fun. And then we have three separate stars that you can layer over the top. And one of those stars actually also fits on top of that little circle or medallion that we use for the front of our belly band. The belly band die piece actually comes with the pop-up burst base die, so you would need to cut two of them, and then you're going to fold along the score lines for each. There's only one score line on each piece, and then on an end, the shorter end is the slit that is going to kind of help tie it all together. So we have our two long pieces here for our belly band. You're just going to add some liquid glue to one of those belly band pieces. Take the other one and place it over the top, line it up with your fold line, and then press down. And then once that's nice and dry, you're going to just take your two flaps on the side, line up those slits, and kind of slide them together, and it's going to form that circle. So you can have this part be the front of your belly band, or you can flip it over and you can do some stamping or some other decorating here. I'm going to take that medallion that I added the star to. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue on my belly band and place that over the top. So now that we've covered the belly band and the main pieces for our burst of cheer, we are going to start putting this together to create that pop-up feature. This is the main base piece that you are going to need to create that interactive feature for our letters hooray or our word hooray. Now, I did already attach the banner, but you don't want the banner attached. You want to leave that off till the very end. So I just kind of carefully ripped mine off. That's why you see those marks there. I'll be able to hide that later. But first, you're going to take a look here close up. We have that little bit of a gap on the side, and then there's that fold line. Our first letter pick with the letter H, I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue to. I'm going to line up the angle of the bottom of that letter pick with the bottom of my pop-up feature. So I'm trying to show you here, getting my fingers out of the way and kind of holding this as close to the camera as I can to show you how that lines up. There is a little bit of a gap from that score line to where I am placing my letter pick, and you'll see it again. Now I'm going to take the second O and I'm going to line that up with the right hand side. So I'm coming right up, kind of a little bit of a gap between the fold and my letter pick. I'm lining the bottom of the letter picks up with the bottom of that pop up feature. So you'll see that numerous times. I'm going to create the other side as well. You always kind of want to start with your edges first and then do the center letter last. Now, if you're doing these in a rainbow color assortment, the letter O's are pretty easy to figure out. But if you're doing maybe all white, that's where it comes into play. On the back of the die, it says first O and second O. You want to keep that in mind and kind of have them laid out in order before you start adhering anything. Now, again, I'm leaving that little bit of a gap from those fold lines and then placing my letter pick down and also lining the bottom of that letter pick up with the bottom of my pop up feature. So that will create our kind of rays of colorful cardstock coming up from the bottom up into that hooray. Really fun, interactive feature for this. And then I have my stars that I can add. Now, you can add anything to the back here, honestly, if you have maybe just a strip of cardstock you could use as a letter pick. These are just going to be kind of tucked behind the letters or in that bigger pocket, is a good word to use. One thing I will advise is your bigger stars probably shouldn't go right in the center like mine did. You want to stay away from the folds, but I seem to have always put the bigger items right in that center, and that's where you'll end up seeing them stick out of the side of the card when I fold it up. So I would say keep your smaller stars towards the center, but I'm never really going past the fold lines, if that makes sense, because I don't want my stars to get bent. So, just as an example, I'm filling in those stars. I added some liquid glue to the acetate, held them in place behind in that back pocket. And now I can come back and add my banner over the top. As stated, you want to make sure you kind of do your stamping before you adhere anything on there. But once everything is dry, you can fold it up and it creates just such a really fun interactive piece to the inside of your card. And you're gonna see, like I was mentioning before, how my 1 star there, you can see it in kind of the middle there, I guess, is bigger, and now it's sticking off on the side. I'll just use a bigger envelope, it's not a big deal for me, but you'll wanna keep that in mind when you're starting to add your elements in there. And I do recommend adding your elements after you get your pop-up burst base piece created. If you try and add your elements in beforehand, it's gonna get really hard. Trust me, I tried that. It gets a little hard to maneuver things. So you want to do your base piece and then add your pop-up features. So that one was just kind of my example, but then here is my finished card project where I can just slide my belly band over the top and notice I'm kind of coming down and I get stuck with my star off on the right-hand side, but that's okay. It's still going to mail fine. And then here are my completed card projects using the Burst of Cheer set, anywhere from interactive to clean and simple. So now I will show you how to create your own bursting bouquet on the inside of your card. You are going to need the pop-up burst base dies to be able to create that pop-up feature. To save a little bit of time, I went ahead and already created the pop-up feature for the inside of the card. And now we're going to work on the letter picks. So there's the word thanks that spells out in these letter picks. It is recommended to die cut them twice and layer them together since they are kind of thin. So by doing it twice and layering it together is going to offer stability. Now we are going to take some liquid glue, add it to the back of our first letter, and we're going to place this right over the top of that perforated line that is on that die cut piece. So these additional pieces are with the Burst of Blooms die set. Line up the bottom of your letter pick with the bottom of that piece. You're going to notice that that smaller piece, I have kind of the larger or bigger open area on the left hand side of the letter T, and I'm just going through taking the first 3 letters, lining it up with that perforated line. So those lines are guides on where to place your letter picks. This one after the A, you're going to notice has that little bit of a gap on the right-hand side of it. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the last 3 letters. I have that more open area of this tab on the right-hand side. So you'll see what I'm talking about here. When I place my end down over that perforated line, there's just that little bit of a gap on the left-hand side. Continue on with the letter K, adding that liquid glue and placing it over the perforated line, just making sure the bottom of your letter picks line up with the bottom of that small die cut piece. Now we're going to come back to our base or our card base, and the top portion of that is curved to match the curve on your pop-up feature, your interactive feature. So we're going to add liquid glue to the back of this, flip it over, and line up those 2 curved lines here. You want to make sure you're not putting anything over the fold. It's just going to line up perfectly with the edges of it. So line up your curves. I kind of like to bring tweezers in to help press that down because it can get a little tedious in there to push it down. I don't want to risk squishing any liquid glue over the top and then gluing my 2 pieces together. So I like to use the tweezers to kind of help press that down. And then same thing with the other side. I'm lining up the curve of that smaller die cut piece and lining it up with the curve of my interactive piece and let that sit so that once we have it all in place, we have the letter picks there, which are going to get covered up. So don't worry, we will hide that. And now you can decorate this in as little or as much as you want with your floral arrangements. These are all die cut pieces from the Burst of Blooms die set. But if you look through your stash, you may have something from other collections that would work really well here. You can place them in that back pocket. You can place them behind the letters thanks, or you can place them in the front. Now, if I'm placing them in the front, I do trim off some of the stems a little bit so they're not poking out. So I'm just using this as an example. I'm not going to completely overfill it. I will show you my finished card project in just a moment. This is just to give you an idea of how you would fill your pockets and how to add the word thanks to it. Now we do have our bouquet wrap that has a scored line in it. So you want to fold along that score line. And this is what we're going to use to cover up our stems in the front. I am using liquid glue to do all of my adhering because, for one, it's a really good strong adhesive. And also, I have a little bit of wiggle room. I do not recommend a tape runner. I find that once you start trying to fold things up and things, it does have a little tension as you start folding it. You need something that's really going to stick. So, I do recommend a good liquid glue. I went ahead and added the banner just like I did in my previous card, just to show you for visual purposes. And that is how you would create the Burst of Blooms interactive portion. Now, you don't have to have the word thanks. That's just something fun and extra you could use. You could also use it on the front of a card project on its own, or you could just have a beautiful bouquet in the inside of your card, which I think would be really great for birthdays or anniversaries, and Mother's Day would be a great one to do it for. So I know that was a little bit longer of a video than I normally do, but I really wanted to show you in detail how each of these goes together. It is a really fun feature and it's just really fun also to play with. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, I will have everything linked down below in the video description and over on my blog. Plus, I have tons more examples to share using the December 2024 release from Concord and 9th. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.